Attention, the following broadcast has been approved by Outcasted OC. Viewer discretion is advised. Incoming transmission in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi guys, it's Unicorn Goth here from the Outcasted OC, and I'm here to review this week's Friday Night SmackDown with you guys. We had a bit of an interesting show. There was a few things that happened and a few good changes, maybe a couple of bad changes. But anyhow, let's get into it. Let me talk to you. Yeah, let's go. So we start off this week's Friday Night SmackDown with the Usos. We are greeted by Jay and Jimmy Uso coming to the ring for a promo. So they start off by talking about how family have always got each other's backs, family are supposed to respect each other, family are supposed to be there for each other, and that family don't fight, and how they're going into this big fight with Roman and Solo at Money in the Bank. And then he goes on to say how he still would be there for Roman. Jay was like, I'll still be there for Roman. He's my brother, he's my cousin, you know. We'd still be there, we'd still jump for him. But he was like, we were the most dominant faction in WWE as the Bloodline. But when Roman lost respect for us, we lost respect for the Bloodline and respect for Roman going forward. So when he disrespected the Usos, that's when the Usos fell out. He was like, family are built on respect, and when the respect is lost, that family falls out and fights. So yeah, that's what Jay was saying. And Jay was then going on to a bit of a talking about like how if you follow rats, and there is a lot of rats in WWE, you'll find snakes. And then he goes on to say that the biggest snake in WWE is Paul Heyman, and it has always been Paul Heyman. So it's like Jay and Jimmy are out to get Paul Heyman more than they're out to get Roman. Which I can understand why, because Paul Heyman has always been very snaky. But he's very well known for that. And you can see in the backstage segments that he likes to stir things up a lot. So I think Jay and Jimmy have finally caught on to that. But Roman doesn't see it. So yeah, that's how that one went. They finally go on to the last bit of their promo talking about the Money in the Bank match, which is a Civil War match between Solo and Roman and the Usos with Paul Heyman's ringside. I'm really, really excited for this match, I can't lie. But they're like, yous are going to get it, Roman and Solo are going to get it, and they're going to be welcome to the Uso Penitarian, which is like the old thing that the Usos used to say. So it's like they've gone back to like their old thing, which is really cool. So then we are greeted by our first match of the evening, which is Hall of Famer Rey Mysterio versus LA Knight. Yeah, let me talk to you. So LA Knight is so over with the crowd right now. With the lead up to Money in the Bank, his promos, his wrestling, he has just developed and developed and developed, and he's really grown to become a fan favourite. And I believe he is the fan favourite to win the Money in the Bank ladder match, which is really awesome. He is definitely one of my 2 picks to win. The crowd were really like into him throughout the beginning of the match. They were literally chanting LA Knight and going, yeah, yeah, yeah. They were really, really, really there for him. Rey Mysterio then sets off LA Knight for another 619, but the 619 doesn't go through. LA Knight actually catches Rey Mysterio as they go into this. Then they go back and forth again a little bit, but LA Knight actually manages to put the BFT onto Rey Mysterio for the win. So after Rey Mysterio was pinned by LA Knight, he gets up and does his little celebratory, yeah. He then goes into attack Rey Mysterio again, but is oddly greeted by Santos Escobar, who comes in to save Rey Mysterio. LA Knight kind of rolls out the ring and runs off, and Santos is just stood there over Rey trying to help him get back up. We know there's a little bit of tension there between Escobar and LA Knight because of them both being in the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. So yeah, we'll see how that goes next week. So we then move on to a backstage segment of Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa. Ridge Holland, Ridge the Fridge as we like to call him, bumps into Solo and is like, watch where you going. And Solo just gets really angry in the moment, hits Ridge with a Samoan spike straight onto the floor and is like, I'm not in the mood for this today. Solo getting angry already, and we've only just started the show. But then Adam Pearce comes to Ridge Holland's rescue. Well, not rescue, he's just there to see if Ridge is okay. He's like, get medical attention. And Sheamus comes in and he's like, Ridge, what did they do to you? What did they do to you? And Ridge turns, Ridge can't speak because he's just been spiked in the neck. Sheamus says to Adam Pearce, give me Solo Sikoa now. And then Adam's like, I'm trying to deal with this. And Sheamus just walks off. But I like the fact that Sheamus is going after Solo Sikoa. So then Sheamus takes to the mic, walks out into the arena, and he's like, Solo Sikoa, I know you're here and you're backstage tonight. I don't know what kind of accent that was, but that's just how it's going down. I've seen what you've done to Ridge. Get in that ring tonight and get ready for the fight of your life. And then just walks off. So that sets up for our main event match, which is Solo Sikoa versus Sheamus. Okay, so then we move on to our next match of the evening, which is a unification match for the women's tag belts and the NXT women's tag belts. I'm not too sure why they're doing this. I don't understand why they're unifying all the women's tag belts. Maybe because they don't have a dedicated women's tag team division, which would make sense. So they need to like lower the tag belts, but NXT being a different brand. I know they're trying to move NXT into WWE's third brand, so I'm not sure what's going on there, but this was our next match. So we have our NXT Women's Champions Alba Fire and Isla Dawn versus our Women's WWE Tag Team Champions Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, with Raquel sat with the commentary team. So whoever wins this match will now be champions of the NXT Women's Tag Belts and the normal tag belts unified, and will represent these tag belts across all brands, so SmackDown, Raw and NXT. So it's a lot of work for whoever wins these belts. But anyway, we start the match with Shayna Baszler and Alba Fire. Very quickly she tags in Isla Dawn. And Ronda is then very quickly tagged in by Shayna. Ronda gets a few arm drags on Isla Dawn, who manages to lie down and kick Ronda in the face so that she can't do it anymore. The match is very back and forth, typical women's match. It's a very quick match. But Isla and Alba had a really good show for their debut match on SmackDown. It was a pretty good match. You could tell Ronda and Shayna were very go, 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 because it was very much them in the lead quite a lot of the way through the match. But in the end, Ronda does manage to get an armbar on Isla. At the same time, Shayna gets a clutch on Alba Fire and Alba Fire taps out, meaning that Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler are undisputed women's tag team champions. I'm going to call it that. I'm assuming that's what they're going to call it anyway. Okay, so we then move on to the next segment of SmackDown, which is our Grayson Waller effect, and his guests this evening are Kit Wilson and Elton Prince in the form of Pretty Deadly. Yes, boys! So Pretty Deadly start off by talking smack about the KO show, and they're like, oh, the Grayson Waller is the best show on WWE, not that KO show. Building some heat, building some tension for their match next week on Friday Night SmackDown against Kevin and Sami for the tag belts. So yeah, he's obviously building up that tension, trying to make Kevin mad before their match. The crowd are chanting shut up, so they're not very into the whole Pretty Deadly thing, which I find kind of weird, because I think Pretty Deadly is one of them tag teams that you either like or you don't like. You either get with them or you don't get with them. If there's no in between, there's no like, yeah, I like them. You either like them or you don't. They are literally like Marmite. You love it or you hate it. So they were talking about how they don't feel like Kevin and Sami were giving them the same respect as they would give to them. They're just winding things up, ready for their match next week. Grayson Waller is also stirring things up, because he's like, oh, you were the Iron Men of that gauntlet match last week. You know, you outlasted all 5 teams and you won. And I'm just sat there like, bro, they were the last team in. Like, how could they defeat all 5 teams? Technically they did, I guess, because they won, but they didn't defeat all 5 teams. They were the last team in. And then they're sat there naming each team, and they're like, we beat them. Hit Row, we beat them. You know, Brawling Brutes, we beat them. And then he's like, the Street Profits, we beat them. And then we are greeted by the Street Profits. Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins come out, and they're like, talking a bit to Pretty Deadly, and they're like, because we want the smoke and we're gonna give it to you. So we then end up in a match between Pretty Deadly and Street Profits. Okay, so at the start of this match, we start with Montez Ford and Kit Wilson. There was a comment made from one of the commentary team. I wasn't sure if it was Michael or Wade, but they were like, oh yeah, they should be called VIDP. Very important, Pretty Deadly. And I found that really cool. It was a bit of a twist on VIP. Very important, Pretty Deadly. Very important, Pretty Deadly. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, Montez Ford was taking the mick out of Pretty Deadly in the ring. He was like, ooh, doing this sparkly, you know. It was really funny. Montez Ford is always comedic and funny, and I think he is very versatile and such a good wrestler. So Montez and Kit go back and forth a little bit, and then Elton gets tagged in. As Elton gets tagged in, Montez does a drop kick on Kit Wilson and then does a drop kick on Elton Prince. He takes Elton Prince and takes his, like, the short top thing that they wear. He actually takes it off Elton Prince, and then they both get kind of kicked out the ring together. As that happens, Montez is putting on Elton Prince's little short crop top thingy, and he's doing this in the ring like, ooh. It was really funny. It was really funny. And then he goes in to do a suicide dive through the ropes onto Pretty Deadly, knocking them all out onto the ground. So then they all come back into the ring and they're doing a bit of back and forth again, a bit back and forth, you know, like kicking each other and stuff. Somehow Kit Wilson and Montez Ford end up being kicked out of the ring in the corner. Elton goes for a roll up on Angelo Dawkins. As he does, the ref is coming down to like pin, like tap. He sticks his legs up on the ropes and manages to pin Dawkins with a 3 count. The ref did not see the feet on the rope, but I suppose that's how you win. If the ref doesn't see it, it didn't happen. They quickly roll out of the ring and run off up the ramp, and they're like, we beat you, that is how we do it. So our next match of the evening was Charlotte Flair versus Lacey Evans. I'm not really sure what's going on with Lacey Evans at the moment. She's acting like a bit of a jobber, but we'll see where that leads for her. So yeah, the match starts. It was a very one-sided match. It was a very short match as well, which is typical for these jobber kind of matches, I guess. I don't know why Charlotte would need a jobber kind of match. She's already an established person. Anyway, Charlotte was dominant the whole match through. Lacey managed to get a few hits on Charlotte, but not very many. Charlotte then ends up in a figure 4. Well, Lacey ends up in a figure 4 from Charlotte, which turns into a figure 8, and Lacey taps out. As Lacey taps out, Charlotte continues with the figure 8, but Asuka then comes into the ring and attacks Charlotte while she's still in that figure of 8, obviously setting up some more tension and storyline stuff for her match next Friday with Asuka. So we then move on to our main event match, which is Solo Sikoa accompanied by Paul Heyman versus Sheamus of the Brawling Brutes. So this match is 2 fantastic people who always put on great shows. Sheamus never fails to put on a great show. He is one of the top tier talents in WWE right now. I feel like, personally, that is my opinion. A lot of people may disagree with that, but I think that is that. So anyway, the match starts. It's very Solo leading to begin with. Solo's very aggressive. He's very angry. He's obviously still annoyed at what's going on with the Bloodline and the Usos, so there's a lot of rage and stuff inside him. So Solo's taking the lead for a lot of the beginning of the match. Sheamus manages to get Solo on the side of the ring and is trying to pull his arm back for the chest beats, but Solo manages to like elbow Sheamus and get out of it. Then they're doing like a bit of a rings on the side of the ropes outside of the ring. They're like pushing each other to the sides, and then Solo falls off, Sheamus falls off. Solo picks up Sheamus and does a Samoan drop onto the floor to him. They both manage to get back up into the ring and they are throwing each other around a lot. It's a lot of picking up and throwing down. It's basically 2 big meaty men throwing meaty men around. Sheamus then finally manages to get Solo on the side of the ring for the chest beats, and he goes in for 10 chest beats as Solo then falls down. They both end up back outside of the ring again then. You can see the nerves in Paul Heyman's face from the ring side. He's literally stood there like, I don't know what's going on. Is Solo okay? He is very, very nervous at the consistency of Sheamus and the 2 counts that they're both constantly pulling. There is a couple of attempted pins from both ending up at 2 counts. They then both end up falling back out of the ring. Sheamus ends up in the announce table and then is left like sat at the barricade. Solo goes out down the ring, storms in and literally boom over him at the barricade, and Sheamus looks completely out of it. The ref is literally looking at Sheamus like, is he okay? Is he okay? Wait, what do I do? No, call it, quit. And they call the match there. Solo obviously wins the match then, but Sheamus really looks like he's done for and out of it. Obviously then we have medical professionals and officials running down to see what's going on with Sheamus. Solo actually takes 2 of the guys wearing black shirts and throws them out the way as he's still trying to get to Sheamus to cause more harm. As Solo gets to Sheamus, we are greeted with the Usos making their way down to the ring. So it's very clear that the Usos have come to obviously take a hit at Solo. So Solo jumps in the ring as the Usos jump in the ring, coming down from the entrance. Jay super kicks Solo. Jimmy super kicks Solo. And then they do a double super kick on Solo. Heyman is stood at the ringside and they both kind of like back him off. They're like, get out of our way, Heyman, you're not here for this. And Heyman's like, well, no, don't involve me in this. Solo is standing up behind them, and as he stands up, they turn around and double kick him again to the ground. Both Jimmy and Jay then climb up the ringside and do a double Uso splash onto Solo Sikoa, and then they stand up. I have to mention Jay rips his shirt off. We like a bit of that. We do like a bit of that. So yeah, that was this week's SmackDown. We have one Raw, one SmackDown left before we have our Money in the Bank pay-per-view. This time next week, I will be in London with Ross. We are going to Friday Night SmackDown and we are going to Money in the Bank. I have one other point that I'd like to make regarding this week's SmackDown. Wasn't we supposed to have the Bayley versus Shotzi match for the qualifying Money in the Bank? I'm not sure what happened to that match this week. Maybe they'll move it to next week's SmackDown, which is a bit short notice for the Money in the Bank match, so I'm not sure what happened there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review. Make sure you tune in on Tuesday for Raw review, Wednesday for NXT review, Thursday for our Money in the Bank predictions podcast. We will have a special guest of Johnny Goldsmith joining us for that podcast. And then Saturday there will be a SmackDown review. There will be plenty of vlogs being posted and stuff from the Money in the Bank weekend as myself and Ross are going. It will be mostly on the TikTok page and it will be in the Reels and on the shorts on YouTube. I am also going to meet Kofi Kingston next Saturday, so there might be a little vlog of that. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget to follow Outcasted on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and don't forget to check out all the members' individual socials. See you next week!